That's fine. Leave it in. Do not cut that.
I'm absolutely cutting that.
No.
Welcome to 141 and 2/3%, the wrestling podcast hosted by two lapsed wrestling fans who could literally stop watching wrestling at any time. My name is Tyler, and my triumphant co-host Will is unfortunately not with us today. Some family matters that he needed to attend to, so we're headed off to the B team. He's one of our faithful listeners, good close friend of both Will and I. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Kies.
Hello.
Kies, how's it going? Let's just start us off with a quick... Let the listeners know about your wrestling journey. What's your wrestling history look like?
My wrestling journey is probably very similar to you and Will's. We all attended Smackdown when it was here last July. I have been keeping up and watching both Raw and Smackdown and the pay-per-view events since. I watched for like 2 years religiously when I was like 12 and 13, but just woke up one day and decided it wasn't for me and walked away, and I haven't looked back since until July 2023. So it's been fun getting back into it. It is vastly different than I remember it as a kid growing up, but it's been fun.
What era was that? What was your heyday? Are we talking like just before the Attitude Era? We're talking like 96-ish, 95?
We're talking like Razor Ramon and like Yokozuna and Doink the Clown. Like it was, yeah, definitely way before, like I got out of wrestling before The Rock was in it and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was well before the Attitude Era.
Right, that tracks, yeah. And I mean, like, that's kind of a dark zone to be your one wrestling experience. Like, you know, WWF hit huge heights in the 80s, and then WCW kind of came in, changed the game a bit. They started releasing some of their aging stars, WWF, that is. And then there's this, like, weird middle ground in the early 90s where the characters are turned up to 11. It's more of a children's-based programming. Not that the 80s wasn't, but it's just really still heavy on characters and not great on storylines and not a lot of realism. So you're from a really weird specific time. Did that contribute at all to you stopping your interest in wrestling?
No, and I don't know what triggered the off switch or what registered it. I don't know. Different sports interests likely took over.
Right.
But
yeah, that tracks.
But yeah, like I said, for 2 years, it was a religion to me. It was my life. I loved it, and then it just like a light switch went away.
Just fell off a cliff. Well, that's understandable. I mean, as we lead off with this podcast every week, it is hosted by lapsed wrestling fans, so you fit right in here. You've been watching a little bit less than Will, and even a little bit more or less than me. Since we've come back here. I mean, like, you didn't do the thing I did where I was kind of checking in once a year. I mean, I haven't missed a WrestleMania possibly ever. So you're not really on that level, but, you know, that was basically all I did for years. So you're not even there. So I'm kind of interested to what were some of the, you know, things you thought about wrestling before you got back into it that may have been, like, misguided or misinformed, that you're now that you've watched for, you know, close to a year, what has surprised you about your return to watching wrestling?
It might sound lame, but I'm more impressed. I'm very impressed with the athleticism of what it is now versus what I remember it to be as a kid. I just remember it being two dudes in a ring throwing each other around, but you watch it now and it is not amateur hour. It's the individuals who do this as a career. It's mind-boggling what they can do in the ring, and that's what's kind of surprised me the most, getting back into it as an adult and seeing it in a different light.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely tracks, and especially from the era that you were most familiar with. Like, it is night and day compared. Like, even if you had continued watching for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That's when we kind of started to see the Japanese and Mexican styles kind of blend into the North American, and then we started having some high flyers, a little bit more emphasis on the cruiserweights and stuff. I mean, like, you're from like the era where, yeah, it is just big beefy men throwing each other around, lots of headlocks, lots of submission moves, a lot of breathing, a lot of rest moves. And now as we're going to talk about in the second half of the show, you get fucking Ricochet, JD McDonough, who are like not even part of the A team, and they're putting on like an incredible world class match to quote unquote kick off Raw. And yeah, it's not even a main event. It's not a pay-per-view. And it's something that if you saw when you were watching wrestling in the 90s, you would have been like, holy fucking shit, what is this?
Well, and it's also like the era I watched, Razor Ramon's doing the Razor's Edge as his big, like he does that, the match is over, but yet you watch Raw and they do the Razor's Edge as just a beginning match move. Like it's just completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into it. Not too much news to speak of this week. I kind of want to, get through. We say this every week. I want to get through this one relatively quick, especially because Raw is maybe the best Raw I've seen since the Attitude Era. Just certainly the best Raw I've seen since I started watching again about a year ago. Like, just one of the all-timers. So we want to leave some space there to dive into that because it was absolutely incredible. The only news item I really wanted to touch on here was that Maryse, who was recently, tumors were found. This is the Miz's wife. Tumors were recently found in her, and she released she put a post up on social media saying that she's tumor-free. She's had her ovaries, uterus, tubes, cervix, all the lady bits removed, which has just got to be absolutely devastating to go through. Like, it must be just horrifying to just have that that amount of yourself ripped out of you. And I mean, there's not really much to say. There's not really much to opine here. I wish her the best. I hope that the recovery goes smooth, and it's just a horrible thing to go through.
And it's an experience you go through in which your partner is on the road like 365 days the year. So that's going to be an added challenge on top of it all.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, they obviously have given Miz some leeway. I don't think he's really been working house shows. He's making the appearances on Raw. And we've even seen him miss a Raw or two tending to her. But yeah, that doesn't change the math of the fact that he's still expected to at least be in another city once a week, which, is going to bleed into at least 2 days that he's not going to be around. So it's a difficult situation for everyone involved, but it looks like, in the modern WWE, they're giving him some space to take care of that and address it, which is commendable. Obviously, now that we're away from the dictatorship of Vincent McMahon, it seems like maybe things are getting a little bit better on the social side of the business there. But yeah, that's it. Our best wishes to Maryse. Let's move right into Smackdown this week. It's March 22nd at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, home of the Bucks. I'm going to lean into a little bit more of the sports this week because Kies is here and Will doesn't give a fuck about sports. But Kies actually knows what the Fiserv Forum is.
That is correct. The Raptors don't have the best positive history in that arena.
That is true. That is true. Also, don't have the best history, just or current history that they're making. As I get a notification right when we started recording that we lost 145 to 101 to the Knicks.
You know what?
It's a dark time.
They're not going to win a game for the rest of the year.
I hope so. Honestly, just give me that draft pick, baby. That's all I want. It's the same thing I say about the Habs. I want them to win against the Flames when I see them in Calgary once a year, and that's about it right now. Just keep tanking for draft picks. If only we had tanked a little bit better on the Bedard year, that would have been a lot better than tanking the year before and ending up with Slav, who I love, but is no Bedard.
It's not fun when your team tanks in a year when there's not a generational talent.
No, and it seems like we have a little bit of history of that for sure. So yeah, let's start off with SmackDown. So we have Rey versus Santos leading us off. Santos is working stiff here. Very impressive match from the realism point of view. You can tell that Ray kind of gave him carte blanche to really showcase his stuff. We got a nice diving slide onto the floor onto Santos, a front-facing baseball slide off the mat onto the floor, which was very well done. Something unique you don't see very often. Ray is selling out here for sure, and like I said, letting Santos hit hard. Like Santos was crushing him with some of those blows, and Ray was eating them. And I really appreciate him putting Santos over like that. I know that they must be close behind the scenes, given how much they've worked together in the LWO over the last year. Yeah, both men were really going for it. A very complete match all around. Solid lucha and also some good traditional mat work and good work on the outside. Very balanced. A great start to SmackDown. It ends with a distraction from Dom and a Ray mask, which leads to a 619 and a Phantom Driver from Santos for the win. I would have preferred if they had been a clean win here. I do think Santos, even though he's a heel, could use a little bit more clean wins to put him over, because I do think he is one of the future faces of the company. And I know he's stagnating right now. And, as I said, leading off this podcast, Kies listens every week. He knows my feelings. He knows Will and I's feelings. But yeah, I just would have preferred it to be a bit of a clean win here. But they're still milking the storyline for some stuff as they continue the LWO, LW no stuff. And what were your thoughts on the match?
A lot of it is in agreement. One of the things that I have noticed since getting back into wrestling is, as you made a mention, clean victories. The amount of outside interference in every single match, it becomes overwhelming from time to time. Obviously, Dom is, love him or hate him, he's at the top of his game right now. He gets a reaction out of people. As an individual who's still new, I'm not fully aware of the history with him and Rey Mysterio. Obviously, same last name. I assume there's a family connection, but I don't know what their history is on when he turned heel or not. When he turned heel, so a lot of it is still new for me. But Dom's showing up every show, every week, every city, everywhere. So I'm not shocked whenever he shows up on my screen.
Yeah, it was a little bit strange because it's a little incongruent to what we've been seeing with the LWO stuff, but also, to be fair, Ray's been out with an injury, so it makes sense, or kayfabe injury, anyways. So it makes sense that he would show back up when Ray did. But it's also there's such an ingrained storyline there that it doesn't really need to connect to anything. You could kind of have him show up as a one-off and interfere with the match. This could lead to something at Mania. It's a little late for them to build that. So I doubt that's where they're going with it. And also, they fought at Mania, I believe, last year, if I'm not mistaken. So no real need to roll it back. But, Dom's kind of stuck right now because I think they had some additional plans for him that concerned Lesnar that they kind of ditched because of the whole piss video stuff that's going on with Lesnar. So I think he's just kind of focused on Judgment, or at least behind the scenes they're having him focused on the Judgment Day stuff, and that's fine. We'll talk a little bit more about him later in the program. So after this one, Bayley and Naomi are hanging out and talking about damage control crap. Bianca comes in, talks some shit about Bayley's history with damage control, blah blah blah. Basically just a pretty straightforward promo here, just kind of resetting the storyline with damage control. And after the break, we kind of continue this with Bianca trying to convince Naomi not to go out there and fight Io. Naomi says she won't back down and they need to band together against damage control, possibly foreshadowing some additional help for Bayley in the Mania match, which she's going to need when she's going up against those girls. Any thoughts here?
Well, and that's what I gathered. I figured this was a pre-storyline is going to be helpers for her, because like you said, she's going to need it. I still don't know. Obviously, damage control is broken as we know it, but is Bayley going to be kept as a villain, or are they starting the process of turning her good?
I think that's what it is. I think they're starting the process of turning her face again, especially Yeah, again, you're such a little baby. You're a little baby to this wrestling world after being gone so long. Bayley was a beloved face for years. She had this gimmick where the whole thing was she's a hugger. You know, like when you go to hug someone and someone's like, I'm not a hugger. Bayley was the exact opposite, and really played into that.
Okay.
So when she finally did turn heel, it was kind of a shock, but it was a little overdue by the time she did. But she was the white meat baby face, kissing kids, hugging kids. Not kissing kids, mostly hugging kids as per her gimmick. But this was definitely a change for her when she started Damage Control, and I think they're leading her back down that road to redemption. I'm interested to see what happens at Mania. Io's had the belt for a long time for someone who isn't a placeholder champion by any means. I love her in-ring work, but WWE just traditionally hasn't kept the belt on someone like this that long, whether they be male or female. Mm-hmm. So I anticipate a belt change at Mania, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Io retained, because she is so solid in the ring, and Damage Control still has quite a bit of heat on them right now. The crowd's still responding to them, so I feel like they could probably bleed this out for a little bit longer, but it does kind of seem like it's coming to a head.
And there's no active women's Money in the Bank right now, is there?
No, that was Io. Io won the Money in the Bank and cashed in on Bianca.
Okay, so
at SummerSlam, maybe.
So if the belt changes hands, it won't be for 10 seconds.
Correct. Yeah, there is no standing Money in the Bank. The only Money in the Bank winner right now is still Damian Priest. So yeah, there's no possibility of anything random like that happening at Mania this year.
Okay.
So yeah, then we get into a 6-pack ladder match qualifier with Theory and Waller versus the Good Brothers. You know, you don't know anything about the Good Brothers, right?
Nothing.
So these men are... This tag team is one of the most beloved tag teams on the indie Japan non-WWE scene. They were huge in Japan. They were part of Bullet Club, which, you know, had members at different times, such as Cody Rhodes and Finn Balor, and a lot of different American wrestlers non-Japanese wrestlers were part of this stable in Japan, and it was very beloved and kind of legendary. And these guys can work, and you can see it in this match. I mean, they really haven't had a lot of airtime lately. Mostly just in the back talking to Mi Chin and trying to convince AJ not to be emo. So it was really nice to see them actually get to show up here. One thing because again, I've only been in for a year, when that AR, the augmented reality thing they have is like this gas mask Shogun creature. The fucking augmented reality stuff just kills me. Like this stupid fucking looking new metal Limp Bizkit 90s bullshit. It's just like giant samurai wearing a gas mask. Like, what are you trying to... It's just like it's like they just pulled a metal shit out of a hat, and they were like, okay, we got red and black Shogun gas mask. All right, print it.
Let's throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
But yeah, it was great. You know, from the beginning, you know, Theory and Waller are gonna win just because they haven't been pushing the Good Brothers at all. But they gave them all of the shine this match. It was dominated by them the whole way through. They came out just flying. They are showing out back and forth all the way into the break. Theory and Waller start working over Gallows' knee. But they still kind of continue to dominate. We get some quick reversal and a schoolboy pin with the feet on the ropes, and Waller holding Theory's feet, which was a nice little touch. It was an excellent match for how quick it was. Like, I hope the Good Brothers get some more opportunities to work on television, as we've talked about on this pod. I think they're going to split the belts up either at Mania or shortly after. And I am all here for them having a run with one of the tag team belts, because they truly still can work. They are getting old. Gallows specifically, because of his style and his size, is having a lot more trouble than he used to moving out there. But by no means does he look like some of the big men of the 90s and 2000s who were broken by his age. I think, this extended rest has helped. I'm sure they're working live matches and live programs throughout the week that are not on television. But I thought it was a really solid match. I mean, again, you have no experience with the Good Brothers, so how did you feel about this?
Well, that's the thing. I literally just Googled them while you were talking, and I'm learning that they, despite their history, they were signed and brought up through the NXT brand, and NXT is the only thing that I don't watch. Getting back into wrestling, so it's like they're new to me, and yeah, you could see it's like a resume. You could see the years of history that they have doing this. They weren't coming in not knowing or being ill-equipped.
Yeah, they have so much history working together too, probably close to 15 years, I would have to think, if I'm pulling that number out of my ass, but they've been working together for a very long time, and it shows. They're very crisp in the ring, and they know exactly where each other are, and the timing's impeccable. I don't know how much of this match was just them being off TV for so long that they really wanted to show out. Hopefully, someone said, hey, go out there, put on a banger of a match so that we can kind of fold you back into everything. But yeah, I thought it was a very well executed match for how short it was and for what it was. And then next up we have Naomi versus Io. So Damage Control comes out minus Io and starts kind of dancing and moving around.
It was a bit weird.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know what's coming here. What's coming is Io sneaking up on Bayley, which happens. They start kicking the crap out of Bayley. Why did I have Naomi? Oh, right. I'm sorry, I messed that up. They cut to the back. They literally cut to the back of the of the arena where Io is kicking the crap out of Bayley. And then Damage Control heads to the back after Io comes out. And then they just kind of start the match. And Naomi starts off hot. Things are a bit rough here at the beginning. It's slow, kind of the complaints that I have about the Dancing Queens tag team. Just a touch sloppy. I'm not sure they've worked together much before because it still continues to be rough into the break. It's a bit better coming out of the break. Naomi's on the offensive. It was really staggered, but it got better as the match went on. There was a superplex spot where they just took a little too long to do the superplex. You could tell that they were checking on each other, making sure they were ready for it. Mm-hmm. Damage Control runs in for the distraction. Io gets the win. Pretty standard stuff here. Mm-hmm. Kind of lame. I think I think Io should, same complaint I had with the other match. I think Io should win clean here, even though she's the heel. I don't think Naomi has the name recognition and in-ring work recognition at this moment. Not judging her past resume, because she does have a lot of great moments before she came back. But it seemed a little weird for Io to need Damage Control here, because she should be kind of positioned as a better, more powerful force for being the champion this long. Then they all start going off on Naomi. There's Poison Mist on Naomi. In comes Bianca. She wrecks house, but then Damage Control recovers. And that's basically it. Pretty standard stuff here, week to week with Damage Control. It does seem like Bayley's kind of, like I said, forming her own Avengers squad, much like Cody, to go against the heel faction here for the title, just in a minor key. Any thoughts?
Same as with Dom and Rey Mysterio, and with a lot of the Raw we were talking. Again, I find there's not enough clean matches. That for me is going to be the tone of this podcast. It doesn't happen enough, and like you said, in this match, it could have been one. Now, similar to the Good Brothers, Naomi, for me, I've only learning of her since Royal Rumble. Don't know her history, but the fact that she's been brought back Twitter has told me she's worth being brought back, but I'm just still kind of learning, discovering her for the first time.
Yeah, and she's got a lot of like positives to her character. She's very comfortable in her character. Very, she's a seasoned vet, I guess, at this point, and is fairly comfortable in the ring. But maybe they should have put her on a few matches on house shows with Naomi or with EO, because it really showed here that they didn't have a lot of chemistry in the ring and hadn't worked together a lot. Yeah, I'm all here for Naomi pushing. This is another example of why they need kind of a mid-card women's belt for the Naomis of the world, because I don't think Naomi's a credible champion, but she certainly could be the women's intercontinental or whatever you end up calling it, right?
Mm-hmm. Which the women's category is definitely lacking. You're right. Like it has the top championship belt, it has the tag team belts, but there's no mid-level belts.
And I don't even think you need two necessarily. Like I don't think you really need one for SmackDown, one for Raw. But it would be nice, it's a belt that you can do a title change on a random Monday night in August and have it make sense. It won't cheapen the title. Put it on people rotating every, 2-3 months. Mm-hmm. Just to give some shine to some of these people who are probably never going to reach world championship heights, but could use a little recognition, and it's a good way to drive storylines.
Mm-hmm.
So we officially get Jade Cargill announced as on SmackDown, and they got a little promo package for her, and that she's going to be on the show next week, which is good. I'm a big fan of Jade and her work in AEW. Clearly they signed her. She came in and she just wasn't quite ready for prime time, and I understand that. Like, part of it is they want to get them in the WWE style of wrestling, but part of it also is that the women's division in AEW, I'm not going to make any friends here for people who watch AEW, but it is, I think, quite inferior as far as talent goes to the WWE. And it's I guess they've trained her up enough at the Performance Center that they feel like she's ready to go out there and work her best matches. I mean, she's got the look and she's great on the mic, so all she really needs is some in-ring tweaking. But I'm excited to see her come out. There's a quick spot with Bianca cleaning out Naomi's eyes and Tiff throwing some shade. That's not really, I guess they're foreshadowing some stuff in the future. I mean, Tiff's really getting over quite hard. And so I think this is just like the really early stages of setting her up for the main event scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get on to Kevin Owens complaining to Aldis. And then Pretty Deadly complaining about a conspiracy against them, which leads to them setting up a match with KO and Randy versus Pretty Deadly next week on the Go Home. Is that the Go Home show? No, it's not the Go Home show. We have two more. So that they have set up a match against KO and Randy next week, so that'll probably lead to some KO Randy drama going into Mania. KO calls back to the double punch on... Well, first he says the last time he was in this building is when he did the double punch on Theory and Waller. And then he walks away, and then he does the double punch on Pretty Deadly, which was fun. I mean, I liked the double punch the first time. Not as much the second time, but it was still good.
See, I'm the opposite of you. I enjoyed it way better the second time than the first time. I keep it, have it as a bit. Do it once every 2 to 3 months, that it just becomes his thing, a little backstage humor.
Yeah, like I've had times in my wrestling history, especially when I was just diving in, watching maybe 4 things a year. KO kind of goes back and forth with me. I mean, he's Canadian. He loves the Montreal Canadiens. He kind of like has the same body type as me. There's a lot of things I can identify with Kevin Owens. And I do like his style in the ring, and I appreciate the work that he puts in given his body shape. But I'm really loving him right now. I really like what they've been doing with him. I'm sure he feels a little stagnant, like not really. I mean, he fought for the U.S. title at Rumble, so it's not like he's been a complete non-entity, but he seems like he's having a ton of fun out there, and they really kind of let him loose and let him say whatever he wants. And he's good saying whatever he wants, being natural, keeping it together, though, and frankly not swearing, which is impressive.
Well, and I think his move from Monday night to Friday night has been a successful transition. I I gather from wrestling Twitter that that Raw is still the bigger of the brand of the two. It's your major leagues versus your AAA. But
Really, you think that?
not me per se, but that's kind of the general
That's the impression
that I get from wrestling Reddit, wrestling Twitter. That Raw's brand A and SmackDown is brand B. And 1 and 2, not like 1A and 1B, or not 1A and 2A. It's 1 and 2.
That's very, very interesting to me because traditionally Raw's always been 1 because it's mostly for the history of the program has been longer and it also has been around longer. But SmackDown's on Friday night. It's on Fox instead of USA, so it always draws bigger numbers. And they tend to put the bigger names on SmackDown as well. So it's interesting to me that that's your impression that you get from the wrestling community. I mean, I don't really feel either way about it at this point, having watched for a year. Mostly just the inherent nature of being on Fox and having Roman Reigns and having some of the bigger names. They definitely made a push for Raw to be more important this year because the contract was coming up. And that's, they solidified it with Netflix. But I think moving forward, it's going to be the bigger of the two. But it's just interesting to me that you feel that way, that from the impression that you've got.
Well, and like Jade signing with SmackDown, that didn't shock me because Raw doesn't seem like the women's category is lacking right now. So that didn't catch me off guard because I was like, that makes perfect. Like that's what I would have done. Put her on the show that not that SmackDown's women's are struggling either, but Raw seems to be it's locked down and there's not going to be much movement right now.
Yeah, you got Becky there, you got Rhea there. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting that you feel that way, but I understand where you're coming from.
Although emotionally, I do have a bigger heart for SmackDown because that's what we all attended.
just that brand recognition alone is enough for you.
That alone.
So then they cut to they preface this by saying that the WWE social media team was out there with AJ prepping for Mania. So they cut to AJ's home. He's prepping for Mania. He's talking straight to the camera. We don't get much of it, but they hear a horn honking in the background, and outside is LA Knight. The video cuts out. We switch to the police cam, and you got to know it's a work because the police force in Georgia go and break up a fight, and they do not draw their guns.
Correct.
You know that the police force in rural Georgia are probably going to pull their weapons out when there's a fight on the front lawn of someone's house. Look, I know they're not black. I know they're 2 white men. Which kind of makes it a little bit more realistic. However,
it's why there were no guns pulled.
It's still rural Georgia. I feel like they would pull some guns. LA Knight gets arrested. He's got some great quips in the back of the cruiser. And that was all well and good and fun and a quick way to kind of put them both over here on a night where hopefully they got it off. I'm assuming they weren't in the building. Kind of give them a week off before Mania. I'm sure they're going to be in the building next week. Then we move on to the Street Profits and AOP in a qualifier to go up against Theory and Waller, which is another one of these qualifier matches that's a qualifier to a qualifier. And I think you'll agree, as a sports fan like me, that this whole, some people just need to win 1 match to get in and some people need to win 2. I don't love that.
No, if you're going to do a qualifier, what month are we in right now? March. Do a bracket. Win in advance.
Do a traditional bracket. If you wanted to do something like this, then, maybe put some B teams together in the qualifier to get to the A, And I do, again, the Good Brothers, I would consider them a B team right now, just as they're being presented. AOP, also. Street Profits kind of seem like an A team. Theory and Waller kind of seem like an A team. It's a little bit disingenuous to kind of have them go out there and have to earn a chance to go to the Mania event. I understand they probably just did the math and only had that, they had 10 teams to fill the 5 spot, or I guess like 12 teams to fill the 5 spots, so they had to break it up, and obviously SmackDown's shorter than Raw. But just as a sports fan, I don't love the 2 different rules for Raw and SmackDown, but whatever. They're doing a good job of not really acknowledging it, which kind of works.
But I agree with you. Like just do a survive and advance bracket, make it formula, make it the same across the board.
Yeah, I like a level of realism in my wrestling, and certainly things that at least make sense and track. But the crowd seems pretty out on this, and as you've heard on this podcast, both you and the listeners, I agree completely. I am also out on this. Though it was a decent match, there was an excellent spot with Montez front flipping over the top rope onto the floor, with AOP catching him in midair and then tossing him into Dawkins. I thought that was really well executed. Other than that, it was a pretty clean win for the Profits, which kind of surprised me. I believe was Scarlett and Jimmy Jojo there. I'm seeing his face, but I'm blanking on his name. What's the head of Final Testament? Karrion Kross.
Yes.
I think Scarlett and Karrion Kross were both not out there for the match. It was just Paul Ellering, who's not going to get involved physically or anything by any means. So it was kind of shocking to see them win that clean with a rivalry that's still kind of ongoing. I think it definitely sets us up for... I hope this is not the case, but it definitely sets it up for maybe some interference by AOP in the 6-pack match at Mania. I don't want to see it, but I could see them still trying to push this storyline because it still hasn't reached a very natural conclusion. It's either going to be A, they boot the storyline completely, and this is essentially the end of it, or more likely B, there's going to be more interference, and they're going to try to drag this into Backlash territory after Mania.
I'm guessing it's probably going to be more B.
Unfortunately, yes. I will say that Montez Ford was unhinged. Like, he's got some, like, Jey Uso vibes right now. Like, he is just... Like, I think when he did the front flip and they caught him, you heard him on the camera mic go, "Oh, shit!" Ah! And he's just screaming at the camera and doing dances and going wild. Like, he looks like he's straight up on Blowout there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. And then we get into Roman and Cody time, which for what essentially was marketed online, in media in general, as kind of the highlight of this SmackDown, was a little disappointing, a little slow. They trade some barbs. Cody does the white meat babyface, takes the high road, makes some allusions to the Shield and to Bullet Club, which I loved.
That one went way over my head. I did not get that reference until reading about it on Twitter.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, I do encourage you to try to find like maybe a compilation of the Bullet Club storyline, because it really is like top tier shit. And there's a lot of people both in AEW and WWE who continue to excel, who were involved in it. And it truly was like an NWO DX level of faction, like super respected, incredible work that they did, and a great roster of people that came in and out of that. But so Cody offers the handshake at the end. It's summarily denied by Roman. He goes over and shakes Heyman's hand instead.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the precursors to this was that they were both going to show up alone, minus the wise man, of course. And, of course, as kind of telegraphed, we start to see Hoodie Solo and Hoodie Jimmy coming out of the crowd.
Shocking
and they're
nobody.
Stalking Cody, yeah, and surrounding him. And then it turns out, Jay and Seth are also in the crowd with Solo hoodies. And, it's Avengers Assemble bullshit, they're setting up for Mania here. Yeah, this was fine. This was well executed for what it was. It was just a little disappointing because there was no turn. Coming out of SmackDown this week, I wouldn't say I was disappointed. It was just kind of a straightforward, pretty mess SmackDown leading up to Mania. Yeah,
like I'm not gonna lie. I watched this episode of SmackDown in like 5-minute segments in between commercial breaks of watching my bracket completely burn and bust on Saturday. Um, so my memory of it is of the entire episode. It's just kind of all over the place. But as I've told you before in person, these past few weeks, it seems like everything's come to a screeching halt because everything is just built up for WrestleMania. And so not a lot is happening outside of what we already know is going to be happening. So, Roman and Cody, like him, come alone, I'm going to be alone. And then them not being alone shocked nobody. Like you saw that coming from a mile away. So I'm at the point where I'm like, let's get to next week and let's clue up all these stories that they've been building up these past couple weeks and months.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt after watching this. I didn't watch this until, I think, Monday night because of March Madness. Full disclosure, Kies and I spent all day Friday drinking and watching basketball, literally for almost 12 hours.
Pretty much.
So I was a little busy on Friday, and then the weekend kind of stayed busy, and so I didn't get a chance to watch it.
I was a little under the weather on Saturday, but the best cure for hangover is just another beer, so...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was watching a lot of basketball and curling all weekend, so I was a little bit removed from... I also have, like, social obligations and a fiance who would like to spend maybe an hour with me on a long weekend that I booked.
Correct. What I will say, though, in the 5-minute segments in between NCAA basketball games, the AJ Knight, that promo, the Cops promo, fucking loved it. The entire time in my head, I'm just singing, bad boys, what you gonna do? Like, it felt like Cops, the TV show. I loved the way it was shot. I loved the feeling of it. It was a extremely well done segment. For me, it was the standout of the entire SmackDown episodes.
Yeah, and I get that, and I think maybe for you, especially someone who kind of missed the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, like this was a callback to that. There were a lot of things like this specifically during the Attitude Era. So for you, this is like brand new. This is something you've never seen before. And it has been a while since they've done anything like this. And so it was refreshing to see. And there's another thing we're going to talk about in SmackDown that was another callback to the Attitude Era. But it was a decent SmackDown. It was pretty straightforward. But let's move on. Let's move on to, like I said, maybe the greatest Raw of all time.
Well, the greatest Raw of all time in a 7-day window, because the greatest Raw of all time happened 2 weeks ago, and then they hit us with the banger that was this past Monday.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible. So next up is Raw. It's March 25th at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, otherwise known as Chicago. The Allstate Arena. Let's just touch on a second here on sports. What do you know about the Allstate Arena?
I know I've never been there, but I wouldn't mind seeing it. I know I'm not a fan of the Chicago hockey team, but I do know in the NHL realm it is one of the more... I don't want to say beloved, but it's one of the more famous arenas out of the now 32 that exist.
So I'm gonna blow you up right now and make you look like a fool.
Okay.
Like a fool.
Okay.
Keys. So the Blackhawks actually do not play at the Allstate Arena.
No.
Yeah, the Allstate Arena is a suburban arena that was made to kind of take the stress off of the United Center. It's kind of like in the Scarborough of Chicago. It's kind of like that arena they have in Mississauga where the Raptors 905 play.
Gross.
It's like a secondary arena that should, it's like Toronto. There should be a secondary major arena for things to go down in. That's not like the Coca-Cola Coliseum or whatever they're calling that thing at the X grounds or the Mississauga place where the OHL team played for a bit.
Yeah, correct.
I've actually been to the Allstate Arena, but not in the Allstate Arena. I've been on the outside of it. I went to I had a band, a high school band trip to Chicago in my last year of high school. And we were in the suburbs, staying close to the airport, even though we ironically drove to Chicago. We were set up in one of the hotels in the outskirts, and kind of like having like being in a hotel in Mississauga, you know. So I've been to the Allstate Arena, but not in the Allstate Arena, so I kind of know where it is. Also, a thing that you'll appreciate that no one else will, so I'll say it to you. We were staying at this random hotel on the outskirts of Chicago, and we had a free day, and I went for a walk and did the thing that I do when I'm in the States, and I'm like, oh, hey, there's Walgreens. I know that thing. Oh, hey, there's an American A&W. Look at this weird menu. Ha ha ha. And I'm walking down the street. I'm smoking. I'm like 18, 19. And I walk by the Mecca, the administrative building of the Big Ten.
No shit.
And I'm like, holy fuck, it's the head of the... Like, it's just like a nondescript office building with a Big Ten logo, but I'm like geeking out. My friends are like, again, band trip. No one gives a shit about sports, let alone U.S. college sports.
Especially when you're 18 and 19 and Canadian, when, like, you know, U.S. sports, there's no TV. Like, back when you were 18 and 19, there is absolutely zero Canadian TV coverage of any sort of NCAA. Football, basketball, hockey, nothing. It did not exist in Canada.
Yeah, and I don't even have a smartphone at this point, so I take, like, a grainy cell phone picture on a flip phone that I don't have the money to send the picture to my father in Canada because it probably would be like a $20 text message. And so, like, my dad, like, I come back and my mom's like, oh, like, how was your trip? And I'm like, oh, you know, I saw the Bean, and I saw Soldier Field, I saw Wrigley. We went to a White Sox game at, oh God, what's the name? Is that Comerica? No, that's Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit's America. U.S. Cellular? Or I don't even know if it's called U.S. Cellular anymore.
It was at that point, yeah. I think you nailed it on that one. And I always remember we were, for some reason, just the entire band, we got tickets to the White Sox game. There's a bunch of band nerds there who've never they've probably never been to the Skydome, let alone another baseball game. And we're at U.S. Cellular, they're playing the Twins, and Nick Punto, for some reason, the entire band just zeroed in on Nick Punto, and we were just heckling his ass. And we are in the Skydome equivalent, or of like the 500, the U.S. Cellular equivalent of the Skydome 500 level.
Sure.
We are maybe 15, 20 rows from the top, and there's just like 25 band kids screaming at Nick Punto, and he can't hear us. We're in the middle of nowhere in the stands. And so I will never forget Nick Punto and the stress we caused him that day.
You know what? 15, 20 rows from the top at US Cellular is probably still way closer than top row at Skydome.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. It definitely felt that way. It was a baseball oriented park, right? So the sight lines were great.
And I would have done the same. Big Ten building, I would have had a meltdown over, even though I watch and support the Atlantic 10. But so out of curiosity, then, like Allstate Arena, if it hosted Monday Night Raw, I'm guessing this is an 18,000 seat arena. If it's
still a proper arena, yeah. Like the Chicago Wolves play there, who are an AHL hockey team.
You're answering my question, because I was going to say if neither the NBA nor the NHL call it home, like, is this an NCAA arena? Like, who plays there? What does it host?
It's a weird kind of amorphous mix. Like, it's a in between building that kind of hosts the overflow of events. Like, I know WWE has done shows in the United Center, which is the main one where the Bulls play and the Blackhawks play. But Allstate's kind of on the suburb area, so it's definitely in one of those areas that's like the confluence of two major highways leading into Chicago. Mm-hmm. So I think it's easy to get to, and you can kind of pull people from the suburbs. Mm-hmm. But it's I'm looking right now. So the Wolves have played there since '94. They're a long-standing AHL team. DePaul, men's basketball,
so it's NCAA.
Played there. And then other than that, you get a long list of like failed sports endeavors, like a arena football team.
Get out of my head.
Indoor soccer. What else we got? The WNBA team played there for 7 years. It looks like Northwestern played there briefly. Yeah, it's just like an in-between arena that these major cities can afford. It's kind of like whatever that arena was in Long Island where the New York Islanders played.
Yeah.
I know it's been torn down.
The
now,
Coliseum?
I'm pretty sure, and they have a new building. The Nassau Coliseum, which I know they have a new arena out there now. I don't remember if they named it Nassau as well, but anyways, these are the conversations I want to have when Will's not here, talking about obscure arena bullshit.
It's fine. That's what I'm here for 1 week. I can help be that outlet.
Exactly. I love it. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. It's March 25th. It's the Allstate Arena in, let's say, Chicago, Illinois. So we get Cody leading us off here straight off the top. Seems like they sold so many tickets that they had to use like the compact video board. Like this is like pay-per-view level sales. The place is just crushed with people and I fucking love it. Wrestling is so over, and Chicago is one of those hotbeds. You know, you got Chicago, Toronto, New York, Atlanta, some of these places that just turn out no matter what, with like rabid fans ready to go. Like, I think this is probably the second or third event in the last 9 or 10 months that has been at this arena. To put it into perspective, where like we're waiting for anything to happen live in Calgary once every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
This place is going to sell out no matter what because it's just such a hotbed. I mean, we're only 4 months away from Survivor Series where they sold the fucking place out. So Cody comes out and just like straight up with some white meat babyface shit. He's talking about the bachelor party he's going to be hosting and being best man.
And Anthony. I wrote down the name Anthony. I want to meet this person.
The kid who needs WrestleMania tickets and his family. He's kissing babies. He's shaking hands. And he says that he pretends to be the champion because he has to, because the real champion is not here. Reiterates how much he respects Roman, but that he still hates his guts. He wants the crowd to ride with him to Mania, and fucking he doesn't need to even say it. The crowd is here for him all the way. Cannot wait for WrestleMania. He throws a too sweet kiss and a Bullet Club right at the Mania sign, which I fucking loved and went right over your head, as we've established earlier in the show.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, you don't know the too sweet? I mean, you barely know the original too sweet.
I know none of the sweets.
You don't know the sweets. You don't know the Wolfpack. You don't know NWO Red and Black. You don't give a fucking shit. You have no idea what any of this is. So he's doing a reference to a reference that you don't understand either of them. But it was great. And then
I liked how he got the crowd into it. He was like point at the sign with me. I thought that was a very unique
that was
and
very good.
Interactive moment. That it wasn't. You know, he talks about it's his story, but it's like it's the fans. It's the fans on Twitter who basically turned The Rock bad, and so I liked that he involved everyone who was there and was like, I'm doing this for you. Let's all point together. I found for me that really stood out.
It was great. I mean, he's just got this fucking character down so hard right now. So he hits the Bullet Club he hits the too sweet kiss. Points Bullet Club style at the Mania sign, and then the Rock's music hits, and it's a Hollywood rock variation. He's got the final boss graphics. He's wearing another absolutely terrific vest.
It was memorable.
And he comes down, they face off, the holy shit chants break out, then the this is awesome chants, then the CM Punk chants, and we have been on the air for 20 minutes at this point. The vibes from this room are incredible.
Well, and I made a note, like when Cody was out before The Rock entered, when he was talking with the crowd, he made a comment about the bloodline of like, I don't want to interrupt your wank fest, and I remember thinking, oh, like this already feels un-PG. Like they're going down a new road. And then when the crowd is chanting "Holy shit!" like 3 weeks ago on SmackDown, there was like 10 minutes that I couldn't even watch because it's being blacked out and it's being edited and I didn't even know what was going on. And the fact that you could audibly hear the crowd chanting "Holy shit!" I was like, it shocked me. I was floored.
Yeah, and like, you have a little bit of different rules with SmackDown, right? Because Raw's on USA, which gives them a little bit more leeway for curse words, because Fox is a traditional broadcaster, so they're over the air, so they can't get away with as much. And yeah, you're right. When they were saying the "holy shit," I was like, oh, they're not blanking out. That's cool. And then I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, oh, right, it's USA. That makes sense. And props to WWE. You did not need to advertise The Rock on Raw to sell tickets because it's Chicago #1. You get to just advertise CM Punk #2, and you don't expect The Rock to be on Raw, period, at this point. So when he fucking showed up, I popped hard. I fully marked out. I'm screaming in my living room. I'm like, oh my fucking God. So The Rock leans in and whispers something. No time on the mic whatsoever. Doesn't even have a mic in his hand. We get this massive build up, the chanting back and forth. And then we get Rock leans in, whispers something, and pieces out. Doesn't say anything on the mic, just walks up the ramp, doesn't say anything. Crowd's booing the shit out of him. And I am captivated. I absolutely adore this approach. I cannot stress how awesome it is to have the guts to not advertise The Rock, have him interrupt Cody's promo, say absolutely nothing on the mic, especially after last week with the fucking song and dance in Memphis.
Correct.
And then just piece the fuck out. I was all in for this. How did you feel about this?
So it threw me off at first because it compared to the rest of the promo, it felt so toned down. I was expecting him to start throwing punches, to be honest. So when he just kind of leans in, the whisper heard around the world, and then walks off, I was it caught me off guard. Not in a good way, not in a bad way. I did not predict that at all. But the entire, that entire opening 25 minutes was just brilliant. It was the hype. I just complained about it's the past few weeks have felt stale because all they are it's just WrestleMania hype, but this was good WrestleMania hype. This hit the nail on the head. And I made a note and it's the same as the crowd chanting "Holy shit." When The Rock was walking backwards on the ramp to go backstage, there's this girl on the front row wearing a beanie and orange hair, and she's just flipping him the double bird, and it's not being edited at all. And I loved it. And actually, I've made a second note of her later on in the episode because she's in the background of Becky Lynch that I would talk about. But from the "holy shit" and the middle fingers of the crowd, it was just, the opening was what this episode of Raw needed.
It was so good and just so unique. And like I said, it's the perfect crowd, perfect situation to execute this kind of, big pop, then the swerve of him not saying anything, whispering something, and we'll talk about the ending later.
Oh, yes, we will.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Right after that, we got Jackie Redmond to ask The Rock backstage what he said, and he just basically says, "Ask Cody." Mm-hmm. And we'll touch on that later in the episode. So then, you're coming off this high, and you see that the next episode is the next match is Richard O'Shea versus Dom. Oh, I have Dom written down here. That's dumb. Richard O'Shea versus JD McDonough in
Correct.
A gauntlet rematch. And I'm very excited for this because I, put a lot of praise on it last week. I thought the really stole the show in the gauntlet match. So I'm very excited to see what they're going to do, just having carte blanche. And holy shit, the crowd is on fire. Again, it's Chicago. It's one of the smartest WWE crowds you can get. It's basically Chicago, Toronto, and New York, I'd say, tied for first place for the hottest, smartest crowds who go out there. They understand what wrestling is. They know that they are going to bring the fire and that the crowd atmosphere is of the utmost importance. And they are smart. They have watched Raw last week. They know exactly what they're getting into. And, I don't have a lot of notes for this match because I was truly, eyes cannot be removed from the screen, captivated by this absolute fucking lesson in a wrestling match. And so I'm just going to highlight some stuff here because, I just encourage anyone who may be listening to this and hadn't watched it to just go back and watch it in its completion because it is just perfection on every level. It's crisp. It's on time. Everything hits perfect. They're doing some high-level shit here that is not easy, not straightforward, not typical wrestling, and you couldn't tell the difference. But I wanted to point out that there is some great one-shot camera work out of the break where they are just doing some traditional crisp wrestling on, doing some old school shit in the ring mixed with some new school shit, and you're just getting a one-shot from this camera walking back and forth on the one side of the ring. And it just sold it so much harder than these stupid zoom-ins that they do from the not Kevin Kelly, from the Kevin Dunn era. There's just one. There's not much to say. The only thing I want to point out is that they do a wrist lock into a Canadian destroyer. That is, WWE gets a lot of shade thrown at them because they don't really do things to the same level as AEW. They're not willing to sacrifice their style of wrestling. But this well-executed Canadian destroyer from a wrist lock is some shit that people in AEW would be desperate to pull off to the extent that these two people pull it off. Just to finish up before I get your thoughts here. Basically the end of it is that Richard hits the top ropes. Dom's out there and rattles them and drops him on his crotch. Dom gets tossed out of the ringside area. And then Richard O'Shea hits a motherfucking shooting star press from a standing JD McDonough. A shooting star crossbody for the win. And I am jaw open. My mouth is agape at this stick to landing on this match after everything they've done for Richard O'Shea to hit a absolute picture perfect shooting star crossbody from the top rope is wild. Absolutely wild shit. Kies, your thoughts.
So if you were sitting here in my room with me right now, I have a blank face. If you tell me, he hit into a 5-4-3 double play, I know exactly what that is. But you write down a note, shooting star press, it goes over my head. All I know is I thoroughly enjoyed the match. I have learnt via social media, or at least gotten the impression via social media, that Richard, this guy just does batshit crazy matches all the time. I'm pretty sure he's the clip on that makes its rounds on Twitter monthly of him and Logan Paul colliding mid-air, jumping from both corners of the ring. He's
Correct,
known,
yeah.
he's known for his athleticism. He's known for going over the top. So did any of it, in terms of the actual terminology of the moves they were doing, it all went over my head. But after that opening 30-minute promo, that was an absolute banger of a match number one for the evening. It was just complete. It felt like it could have been a pay-per-view premium live match.
True, both of these guys, you know, Richard O'Shea was the Intercontinental Champion before Gunther. So he had a push going on. And he has a name, Ricochet, that is kind of very 2015 WWE, kind of lame. It's one word. He can't be himself. And he really, truly, they call him the human highlight reel, and it's true. Because he does these things that are very commonplace in the indie scene, that are considered unsafe and dangerous by most professionals. A lot of stuff that you have to do in order to get over. But he does it so crisp, so clean, so safe. And all props to JD McDonough because, you know, he's also kind of languishing in the C tier of wrestling right now. And he's the forgotten member of Judgment Day. He's kind of used as a punchline. But he also has incredible skills. And the way he is just there for everything on this match, and just being safe and productive and crisp and perfect. Like, so Canadian Destroyer is that kind of front flip, back flip, pile driver move.
Okay.
Which is another thing that is essentially banned in WWE. There's a few things that are banned in WWE that didn't used to be, such as swearing, which we had this week.
Correct.
Such as the Canadian Destroyer, which we had this week. Set from a fucking wrist lock, by the way. Just want to state that for the 5th time. Holy fucking shit. To sell that so perfect is wild. And also, bleeding, which is, or blading specifically, like, bleeding on purpose, which is also banned, which we will get to.
Well, there was a lot of it in this entire episode, not just the back end.
Yes, and, I was, my mouth was like, my expectations were so high going into this match after the clinic they put on last week in the first segment of the gauntlet match. Holy fucking hell, this was incredible. Like, one of the best non-pay-per-view PLE matches I have ever seen on television.
And the one note that I had wrote down when I was watching it, and again, it's been my personal, I'll say, pet peeve for the past couple weeks. But like when Dom was interfering and putting JD's legs on the rope when he was in a 3-pin, you know, I was just like, let these matches go clean. But I really liked then that when the ref was like, no, you got to get out of here, basically kicked him out. And then that altered the course of the match that then, quote-unquote, the Judgment Day lost because they couldn't cheat. And I really liked that turnaround.
Yeah, me too. And I hope it sets up more matches with these two because, like, seriously, I could fucking watch these guys go every week. They've already shown it 2 weeks in a row. Like, you can't fit them onto the WrestleMania card, I don't think. Yeah, sure, it's 8 hours, but we already have a lot of matches going on. And, like, story-wise, it doesn't really make sense for them to continue this. But I'm fucking here for it. Put them as the opener of night one just to get everyone hyped. Like, holy hell, like, This was just a random Raw in Chicago. Yeah. And they did this. Yeah. I cannot express how much I enjoyed that. I've watched it twice already, which is something I never do. I never rewatch a wrestling match until it's, like, aged at least 5 years. And I've already watched it twice because it was just so impressive from it. I beg you to watch that match and try to find one aspect of an inconsistency or unrealistic. I just cannot express how happy I was watching this.
Like you said, I think it was coming out of the first commercial break of that match where they do it's like a 57-second single camera shot that was extremely impressive. And like I don't know if it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, but they did something similar on Raw where it was like, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Sami Zayn. They were following backstage after his match, but then the cameras stopped on a new wrestler and then followed them back out to the ring. And it was like just this 2-minute single shot. And it was just very well done. What I did not like though, and this is a very, you will only get this reference after the Cody and Rock promo, I hated that immediately after the commercial break, it's given a recap of what you just watched. It felt like It felt like Sportsnet connected in the Blue Jays. I just watched the game. Don't give me the 5-minute clip immediately at the top of the show. It really irked me for just very direct reasons of shit that I hate, but it gave me Blue Jay PTSD and I did not like it.
It is a bit of cheating, just kind of, it is a 3-hour runtime of the show. And it is a bit of cheating to kind of have to recap that immediately.
Absolutely. It's one of my pet peeves with sports nightly shows across the board. If you watch The Flames, immediately the Sportsnet connected show afterwards, the first clips they show you are the game you just watched. And it bothers me. It bothers me on a very personal level.
That's fine. I feel that. Well, let's just move on to yet another fucking banger. We got 3 in a row here.
Yes.
So, Punk's music hits. It's everything you want. The crowd is just going fucking wild. It's the Second City Saints back at home anytime he's in Chicago. I mean, his entire brand is based around his hometown, so it's great to see. So he comes out. He says he's going to be at Mania, maybe as a host, maybe as a referee, ? Gets the crowd going on that one. We're going to touch back on that in about 5 minutes. Love that he shouted out corny by laughing at Pat McAfee, saying he doesn't listen to the Pat McAfee show, but he listens to the Experience in the drive-thru. Do you have any idea who Jim Cornette is?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Let's just move on. I'll talk about this later. But Jim Cornette is one of the premier wrestling historians and personalities who spans decades and also hosts probably the most popular wrestling podcast in the world right now.
So is this a famous fan, or is this someone who used to be employed by WWE but then just covers it now on their own employment?
Yes, he was employed by the WWE, but very briefly. He's more of a Southern, I don't even want to say WCW, he's more like a territory guy.
Okay.
Who has been involved as a manager, a commentator, a promoter, all facets of it. He ran OVW for a bit.
So has had on-screen characters.
Yeah, do you remember, you were talking about Yokozuna earlier, do you remember a guy with a tennis racket?
Vaguely.
I don't know if he would have bled into the point where you were watching, but he briefly managed Yokozuna, and he'd come out with like a white suit and a tennis racket.
Okay.
Also managed like Owen Hart and Big Van Vader. But yeah, that's not important because you don't know who it is, so there's no reason to dwell on it too much. He throws some shade at Seth, and then some shade at The Rock, and then some shade at Drew, and then when he throws the shade at Drew, here comes Drew. I have a lot of notes for this one, so I'm just going to touch on some highlights, but I encourage anyone who has not watched to watch, because it is, again, an unreal promo between the three of them. Just a 3-man weave of incredible timing and perfection. But so he throws some shade at Drew. Drew comes out. Punk yells to turn off his stupid song. Says he's not medically cleared to wrestle, but he is ready for a fight. So get in the ring and I will beat the shit out of you. He says, get your bitch ass in the ring. So we have another swear here. But
yes.
Punk has said he's never had to give another man, or never had to put another man's name on a shirt to sell it, making fun of Drew's t-shirts that all have references to CM Punk.
Which I think is a lie. Again, I've only been watching now for a few months, but I'm pretty sure I saw on Reddit someone specifically because of that quote showed a screenshot of him from like 15 years ago wearing a shirt with another wrestler's name on it in the ring selling merchandise.
I love that. I did not see that, but I'm here for it.
100%.
That's great. Yeah, so, Punk says he never had to do that, and then basically Drew walks around the ring and goes over to the commentary area. I think at this point he's standing on the commentary desk, says, Jesus, Punk, you're straight edge, you don't smoke, you don't drink, but you spend all of your time in rehab, which is just an all-time line. Just an absolutely incredible burn. It's just hot, natural fire all over the place. You can tell both of them are going off script, and they're just nailing it. McIntyre invites him to have a front row seat and commentate the match at Mania. And then Rollins' music hits. Rollins puts himself over with the help of the crowd. Kind of surprised how much reaction he got from the Chicago crowd, especially with Punk in the ring and the history they have together. But whatever, I'm here for it. Says they can't, Drew and Punk can't make decisions about Mania and the title match without the actual champ there. And then he asks the crowd, hey, do you want Punk on commentary? And then the crowd starts chanting referee. And then Rollins says that his counting arm is hurt. And then Punk summarily diffuses that by hitting the mat and counting with his left arm, that the crowd is all in for as well. Then he comes up and says, I couldn't be impartial anyways with these two dipshits in the ring. Dipshits gets bleeped out. And then Drew just throws in it's a PG, brother. And oh my God, it's just so organic and so incredible. Punk then just proceeds to absolutely shred both Drew and Rollins on the mic and yells for them to hit his music. Drew yells for them to cut the music, starts walking into the ring, calls Punk his Stan, does a little rap with Phil instead of Stan, and then just gets put down by Rollins. I have just made a summary of this, but holy hell, this was can't miss. I had to pause and rewind 5 times just to make notes. What an absolute incredible 3-man weave on this promo with zero fuck-ups, zero stutters, improvisation, some swear words, real heat when fucking Punk was like, I don't need you to be relevant. I don't need to be like you and have your wife, and the look on Seth's face. What are your thoughts, Kies?
Loved it. Watching it live, I actually liked this promo better than the intro of Cody and Rock. I thought this one took the cake.
Oh, no question.
For the evening, at this point of the evening. So the first note that I made for it, and again, very personalized to just me and you, when it came back from the commercial break before CM Punk walks out to the ring, there's a backstage segment where he has the Major League Baseball Chicago Cubs WWE Championship belt over his shoulder. Fuck these MLB Championship belts. I hate them. Throw them all in the river. Shoot them into the sun. Get rid of them. I hate them. And it's not the only championship belt we see this evening on Monday Night Raw. But I was instantly angry when they came in from the commercial break because of that goddamn belt. But then the promo started and it just, all that anger went away. Again, the PG has gone out the window this week, and I really liked CM Punk's reference to, he said something along, I didn't quite write it down, but he said something along the lines of we're almost at Netflix, basically foreshadowing once they get there, it's gonna go back to the quote unquote attitude era of that people know. And yeah.
God, I hope so. God, I hope so.
When Drew's on the table, cause you're right, Drew doesn't really get in the ring. He's talking to him from the outside, and I don't know. They're completely unconnected, but in my mind, I connected them. But when he sits on the table, he sits cross-legged, which I was like, oh, he looks like a little kid, and I laughed. I laughed because the beginning of the episode, when Cole's doing his introduction, he's like, yeah, we're in Chicago. Cole, and I wrote this down. Cole says, where did I write it? Let me just find it quickly. Cole says, he doesn't say we're 12 days from WrestleMania. He says we're 12 sleeps away. Again, it's like he's a kid counting down to Christmas. So between Cole's 12 sleeps away and Drew sitting cross-legged, I was like, oh, this is fun. Everyone's just enjoying themselves. It's adorable and it's cute despite being wrestling.
So for you not being aware, the cross-legged thing is a reference to CM Punk.
Okay, that I know. That went way over my head.
Yeah, so Punk has a legendary promo called the Pipe Bomb.
Okay.
And he comes out on I believe it was on the ramp, and he takes the WWE logo off of the microphone and throws it away and then sits cross-legged and delivers absolute fucking fire in a time where no one was really on the program was acknowledging the fourth wall or acknowledging that wrestling was a bit of a work. And he basically just like puts Triple H on blast for being, the son-in-law of the owner. Which I also encourage you to look up. But that's what that was. That was the cross-legged thing was there for that.
Gotcha.
But I did catch the 12 sleeps thing, and I was all there for that. Because I feel that way right now. I'm so fucking excited.
It just, like I said, the best for me, when those words came out of Cole's mouth, honest to God, I was sitting here at home alone, and talking to myself, I was just like, "Oh, that's adorable." Like, it was just so in the moment for him to be that excited for WrestleMania. But then when Seth's music hits, I legitimately laughed out loud at CM Punk bashing the mic into his forehead out of anger. Like, I don't know if that's him acting or, and I made this note, like, I don't know if that's him acting or do him and Seth legitimately in real life, out of character, hate each other, because their stare down in the ring at the end of that promo did not feel like they were acting wrestlers. It felt legitimate.
Yeah, it was, they really just executed on every level on these promos. And like I said, no one was weak, and actually I should say that no one was weak, but Punk absolutely eviscerated them. He was twice as good of a speaker as both of them put together, and they didn't do anything wrong. Punk is just unequivocally the best on the mic, and he really showed it. I mean, he's also in Chicago, which is like the
which I think helps.
Stats times 2.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it was so great. All right, let's clip through a little bit more of this, unless you have anything else to say. About
the only two things I was going to say was I'm still warming up to Pat McAfee as a commentator. I don't know if I like him yet, but again, I legitimately laugh out loud when he wasn't even saying it humorously. It was very deadpan, but he was just like, when Drew rips the shirt off and he has the second shirt underneath, Pat McAfee is like, oh, look, he's wearing 2 shirts. And it was the most unhumorous thing, but I was busting a gut laughing at it. It was so completely out of the blue for the rest of the promo.
2 shirt gimmick.
the only thing I'll ask, and I don't know if you know the answer, I might have to Google it, but I wrote this down. It looks like behind CM Punk's left ear, he has a tattoo that's just the number 13. Do you know what that is?
Not immediately, no, but...
31, not 13, 31.
I'm assuming it's that song by Johnny Cash, I can't remember what it is, but I assume it's something like that, or it's Offspring. He asked for a 13, and they drew a 31.
Okay,
I assume it's one or the other because he's a big Punk. He's a big Punk fan. Punk is a big Punk fan. Do you know about Punk's love of Pepsi?
No, but my fandom of him just kind of went up.
So I'm just gonna say for the listeners, Kies is a massive fan of Pepsi. And Kies, I encourage you to look up CM Punk's relationship with Pepsi, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay, done and done.
So then we get into.
I have nothing else. I just that promo was just amazing. It was fantastic from top to bottom.
Oh yeah, it's everything you want it to be and more. So yeah, just whipping through some stuff because I want to get to the real jam here. We get a basic Nakamura promo. I want to talk a little bit more about him later in the program. But yeah, basic Nakamura Japanese promo, and then we get a little bit of a little bit more storytelling here with the Ivy Nile Candice LeRae match out of the break, where they are trying to make up for time. They don't even have the intros,
which I thought was so disrespectful.
Yeah, but it's a live show, and I'm sure between the initial Rock and Cody promo and the stuff with Punk and Drew and Seth, they were kind of desperate for time, so they kind of
Hmm.
just threw them out there to progress the storyline of Lorraine's slow descent into madness or whatever, which is nice
Hmm.
because honestly, she wasn't really doing much before, so it's good to see her pushing something with her. Yeah, so it's just a continuation of the stuff with Maxine Dupree. Um, Basically, quick match. Lorray ends up distracting the ref, and she's trying to get Hartwell to punch Ivy on the
Hmm.
sides, and she won't, and then knocks Nyla out of the ring again, and Hartwell won't bite. Lorray fakes an injury, gets a quick pin with the assist of the ropes, very kind of similar to the match earlier, which kind of sucked, but whatever. And then we get left with Hartwell looking conflicted. Anything you want to talk about with either of those?
No, the only things I wrote down was just what you said, like fake injury, cheated to win, and I wrote down that it was a 2 minute match with no intros. Like it felt like filler, but filler that was even felt rushed.
Yeah, and it definitely felt that way. But also, like with the rest of the stuff they crammed into it, it's fine.
Hmm.
Then we get a New Day and DIY hyping up the Mania match, the 6 pack ladder match or whatever. Truth and Miz come in. Truth is excited for the best match ever, and no, he's not talking about the Mania match. He's talking about New Day versus DX, and he's gonna go out and commentate with JBL. Also, another great little reference here to the past. And quickly, I guess we should touch on the fact that he did come out with the White Sox version of the belt that you hate so much.
I had it wrote down. It was in my notes.
And I'm also not a huge fan of this whole push, but it's corporate synergy and fanatics. And I mean, we could do a whole other podcast on fucking fanatics, but yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, exactly. So then we move right into DIY versus the New Day. Crisp start as expected. A bit of chaos on commentary with Truth there. He's just going wild. He's just completely unhinged. A great showing of both teams until Judgment Day pretty quickly shows up and starts clearing house in the setup to Mania. Truth just kind of like yells through the whole thing, even when Miz finally gives up and runs into the ring to try to help. And after they clear house, they come down to confront Truth, who's just screaming for them to cut to a commercial break, which was also a very good touch.
Brilliant.
Yeah, they throw him into the ring. He has a bit of a run against JD, but then eventually he's overwhelmed and gets crushed as well. Anything you want to say about that match?
No, just my hatred that it started with the MLB championship belts. As you are well aware, as we've spoken before in the past, the Miz, I just love him. I don't feel like they're utilizing him enough. He's becoming my favorite. So anytime he's on the screen, I love it. What I did not know, and I wrote this down, R-Truth has been with WWF/WWE for 30 fucking years. The Miz made a comment, like Michael Cole said something, or Pat McAfee said something, and Miz kind of looks over confused, and he's like, R-Truth's been doing this for 30 years, and that blew my goddamn mind.
Yeah, he's been wrestling for that long. I think he came into WWE about 2010, 2008-ish. So he's been around for quite a while. And you can see why, because like obviously he must be, I would hope he's like a great dude to hang out with because he seems to project that. And he's all there for the business and he's ready to do whatever they want, whether it's fighting John Cena for the title or 20 years later, just like doing a fangirl thing with the Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I agree with Will. Like, Truth, like, anytime he's on screen, it has my undivided attention. Like, give him a full 3 hour episode on his own and I would be happy. Like, there's no such thing as too much R-Truth.
Yeah, yeah, he's so great. He's perfect. And then we have a little bit of filler here, back and forth. We got Jackie Redmond with Cody Rhodes. She wants to know what The Rock said. Rhodes doesn't want to divulge exactly, but he says it's a promise he can't keep. So we're kind of again more Mania stuff that we're leading up to, some more drama in the background, and then we get a Gunther interview out of the break. It was a basic, well constructed heel work. Not much to say here. Yeah, Yeah, I mean, that's it. It was a straightforward heel promo by Gunther. We move into Andrade versus Vinci. Weird match. Apparently, Ivar was supposed to be the competitor, but he's not cleared to wrestle. Uh, Smells like another, rung on the slow climb for El Idolo, and that's what it ends up being. It's a par for the course match. Vinci gets a little bit of work in, but it's well executed for the type of match it is. The only thing is like, the result from the beginning. They're trying to build Idolo up here, starting them with squash matches and moving forward. Yeah, I mean, like they're just trying to build Idolo up here, and I like Andrade. I have respect for him. He's kind of stuck in the middle right now. There's not really much for him to do in the immediate, so I think they're just kind of feeding them people on a slow climb to the top. I could see him winning a U.S. championship, or, I mean, hell, they might even have him dethrone Gunther at some point. It doesn't really make sense right now, but maybe with another few months of work, it could actually track. But, yeah, they're just kind of feeding him right now, and that's fine. He's great in the ring. He does a great job. Any thoughts on that match?
Yeah, no, the only notes that I made on it, and I started writing it down, is that it was a clean match. There was no interference. It was a clean 3 count. The only thing from the match that stood out to me is there's a point where he gets thrown. He's supposed to get thrown out of the ring, but he kind of lands on the rope and just kind of poses there for like 10 seconds, and I was like, oh, that's fun. But no,
that was a great bit. Yeah,
it was a very run of the mill, probably end of the second hour match. There was nothing too much to write home about it.
Yeah, for sure. And then we move into a Rhea promo with Dom. Another basic, just hype to the Mania promo. Rhea wants Becky's attention. She hands the mic off to Dom for a quick boo before Becky's music hits. Standard back and forth between both of them. Well done. Like, don't get me wrong, it was fine, but it is what it is. Rhea kind of like swung and missed with the cockroach line, throws some shade at Becky's daughter, which brings a little bit more realistic heat to it. Becky really seized on the emotion of the moment and escalates everything. We get a stare down. Dom breaks it up. He gets some shade from Becky and then starts to kind of approach her. And then we get the pinnacle of this promo where Dom, God bless him, he basically must have told Becky, dude, they're going to play it in slow-mo later. Just punch me as hard as you can right in the chin. Because she unloads on him. And in the moment, I was like, holy shit, that looks stiff. And then when they came back with the patastrator bit later on, they showed it in slow-mo. And yes, holy hell, she clocked him full force.
Yeah, that was the biggest note that I made on this promo, is that punch looked real. That was not fake. And if anyone's gonna step up in terms of the character and be involved with that, it's gonna be Dom.
Yeah, it was props to him. We love to boo him and stuff, but he's been a very giving participant in many angles that have portrayed him as a giant piece of shit. And I really appreciate how willing he's been to go out there and put business first and do what's best and really just shit all over him repeatedly from every angle. And I appreciate him. I'm looking forward to his inevitable face turn. It might not be for a while because people really love booing him. But I think eventually, once he has run the course on this, he's going to go face, and I think the crowd is going to really pop for him, just out of appreciation for all the things that he's done on this heel run.
Yeah, the notes that I made of this promo was she was wearing some very nice looking fresh Air Jordans. Her shoes, Becky's shoes, I was like, I want those. Those are phenomenal sneakers. And then you were talking about like the emotional, tapping into the emotions of that promo. Ripley made a comment, I believe, about like her dad being like, oh yeah, he's passed away. I made a note, like, is that real or was that work? Like, I know nothing about her real life other than her being married to Seth Rollins, but I was like, is her dad actually passed away? Was that right? Was that Ripley going too far with the promo? And then the same red-headed girl who was flipping off The Rock when he was backing onto the ramp after his intro promo, as Becky was leaving, she's now holding a sign that just simply says "Buy Becky's book." And again, I thought that was just brilliant. And cheers to that fan for bringing it twice in different moments on the same night.
That's pretty cute. I did notice that, but I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And then we get the Sammy Bronson Reed match. So I anticipated going into this that they were just feeding Sammy some additional victories on the road to Mania, taking out some of the more of the people that were on the Intercontinental Championship path. Pretty basic match here until Gunther shows up on the ramp and distracts Sammy basically just by standing on the ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And Reed won fairly clean. I just found this, I found more than the match, I found the result interesting because I think there's a couple ways this can go. I like this decision if it's a Sammy defeat, which I think it should be. I do not think Sammy should dethrone Gunther at Mania. And I like this as part of another step on his journey to being a heel again. I don't really love this decision if Sammy ends up winning at Mania, but that's a comment for another day, for another podcast. But yeah, any other thoughts on it? Like, it was pretty basic as far as the match went.
Yeah. Clean in the sense that it was a 3-pin count with no interference other than Gunther distracting him just visually being there. But wasn't clean in the fact that Bronson's nose got busted up and he was bleeding everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, I think that happened during the break because I didn't see anything before the break that would have led to that, but he was bleeding out of the break. So it kind of seemed more of like a cut than his nose getting busted up. But again, we didn't really see, to my estimation, what exactly happened.
No.
But this is a precursor for what's to come.
Correct.
So just to tack this on the end of this match, there's something in between it, but later on in the show, not too much longer, Sammy is having a fit, and Gable interrupts and offers his different approach. That he wants to give Sammy a different approach leading into Mania. Not sure what that means. Is Gable trying to get Sammy into Alpha Academy? Are we going to get something touched on the next SmackDown or the SmackDown after that kind of leads a little bit more into what they're talking about? I'm a little intrigued by what they're going for with that, but it's kind of more of a wait and see than I can't really speculate too much on where they're going with that.
Well, and didn't he do a promo, a quick 30-second backstage promo before the match telling him, don't let Gunther get in your head, that's what he's trying to do? Didn't they have, a prep talk?
Last week. Yeah. So it's interesting to see where they're going with that. Again, I do not think Sammy should win at Mania. I hope he doesn't for the sake of the story. But if they can make it work, they can make it work. But, yeah, just kind of straightforward stuff here.
And so, to rewind it back 30 seconds, again, newish, back to being a fan, Sammy was a heel at one point?
For quite a bit.
Okay.
I can't really put the pieces together in my brain either on timeline, but the Mania before last was he had a match as a heel against Johnny Knoxville in a Jackass match.
Okay.
Where there was all of the Jackass props and Sammy took a bunch of fucking weird looking shots and I believe ended up eating the pin to Johnny Knoxville.
No shit.
In the lead up to Jackass 4 or whatever that one was. Yeah, he's mostly been heel, I would say, in my experience in WWE, because he's a pretty solid heel, and then he translated that loss at Mania into being everyone's making fun of me, I want to be part of the Bloodline, and then the Bloodline kind of laughing him off until he proved himself, which led into him then kind of finally breaking up with the Bloodline last Royal Rumble, when I believe KO had a match with Reigns for the championship, and they were just beating the living hell out of him with a chair in the middle of the ring after the match. And then finally Sammy snapped and said no more, which led to him having a title match at Elimination Chamber last year in Montreal, in his hometown, that he subsequently lost due to interference, but also led to him and KO winning the tag belts off of the Usos at Mania in the first night main event.
Okay, because yeah, like in this current run that I'm watching, like he's like when his music hits, the reaction from the crowd, like he just seems so beloved. I can't even imagine to picture him as a villain. Like to me, it just that's not possible.
Right, yeah. I mean, the experience that you've had, it doesn't make much sense. But again, it's one of those things. He's so over with the crowd right now because of the work he's done as a heel. Like I was saying about Dom, eventually this is going to be Dom's path.
Mm-hmm.
Is that everyone's going to appreciate the work he's done for so long that they're going to cheer the fuck out of him when they finally can.
Mm-hmm.
So, then we get a Jey Uso Unleashed promo number 17, but it's quickly interrupted by Solo and Jimmy, who are there to interrupt. And then we head into the main event, which is Jey versus Nakamura, which seems like a placeholder, but little did we know what we were in store for here at the end. So, just to run down this match quick, because I have a few things to say, but not really much about the match. Jey gets some assurances of backup before he hits the ring to face Nakamura from his buddies Seth and Cody. Pat is really taking this yeet things to the limits of PG television. Some of the ways he references yeet.
Mm-hmm.
He hit a window to the wall reference. and that song is about coming. That song is about coming everywhere. And so is yeet, I guess, kind of, because it sounds like skeet. I'm not sure what the fuck is happening here, but Pat is really pushing the boundaries.
He's going over the top with it.
It's a little wild. I just wanted to take a second in this match review before I break it down to the end, just to throw some love at Shinsuke. The man is a great worker. He can work with many different styles, many different body types. Cuts promos in his native language, also is forced to cut promos in his second language as well. He gets tossed randomly into these nonsensical stories just to kind of be filler, does his best to sell it. This year's been like tough on Shinsuke from the fact that they've really never had a definitive angle for him to really go for. Aside from the Seth Rollins stuff, which was also kind of choppy, because, Seth beat him clean, and then they kind of had to roll him back to give Seth another competitor again, to do the back shit. I just want to throw some love Shinsuke's way. Like, he's asked to do a job, and he goes and he does it every week, despite this year being one of the hottest years for wrestling in ages, and he's kind of been thrown in this weird utility man role where he has to do these random things every week, and he really does his best to sell it, and I appreciate him.
And I agree with you. Since I've been watching, I've seen the guy go through two massive storylines. Like when I got into it, he was beefing with Seth, and then he was beefing with Cody for 2 weeks, and for me, my feelings towards him are similar to The Miz. I feel like he's being underutilized. That he could be a top tier A-list draw if they booked him better and if they gave him better stories.
Yeah, and I mean he has been in the past too, so there's still a path for him. But it just he's just kind of on the back burner right now, and they've done a good job of keeping him relevant and more relevant than some other years when they had him on the back burner. But I hope he gets another crack at maybe a title, at a world title. It's hard to kind of sell him right now at the top being so heavy as it is right now with talent. But he does the job, and he's there every week for it, and I appreciate him. This match is great. It's great for what it is. It's fairly quick, which was shocking to me in the moment. Everything was a decent match until shit kind of broke down when Jimmy and Solo show up and Cody and Rollins show up, and they're all throwing down in Donnybrook. Jey ends up with the clean win.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really paying it. I usually am paying attention to the time, but I'm watching this on record.
I wrote it
so
down.
I'm not really sure where we are. Yeah, go ahead.
When the match ended, there was 8 minutes left in the episodes.
Right, so I'm not tracking that. So I'm feeling we're in for just another quick ending here.
Yeah,
and then they cut to the back.
Mm-hmm.
Cody takes out Jimmy. Cody takes out Solo. And then all of a sudden, The Rock comes. And he starts teeing the fuck off on Cody right from the get-go. And I, again, am specifically not looking at the clock because I don't want to know what time we have left at this point. Because it is quickly escalating. Mm-hmm. First, he's tossing him around the back, bouncing him off tables. Then he's got garbage cans and he's throwing them at him.
Throwing him into, like, crowd dividers.
Yep, absolutely. And then Cody gets thrown out of the building through the exit doors, and bravo to Chicago weather, just painting the perfect picture. It's pissing down rain.
Paid
it's
actor.
Cold as shit.
The rain was a paid actor.
Honestly. Then The Rock is going off, calling people of Chicago pieces of shit for booing him for not saying anything. He is just beating the living hell out of him in the rain, throwing him into his own bus, rocking him on the edge there, which I definitely thought he was going to throw him over the edge. And I'm glad he didn't, because it would have been a hard, realistic sell to have The Rock just throw Cody over something that clearly the camera angle made look like it was 2 or 3 stories deep.
Mm-hmm.
But I did expect that for a second. But he just beats the shit out of him in the rain. He's a little repetitive with his words, which I didn't love, but whatever. The fucking angle is sold so hard.
Quote unquote.
Delivers.
Quote unquote. Look at you now.
Look at you now. Look at you now. Look at you now.
Take a shot every time he says that, and you would have died.
He delivers a hell of a promo straight to camera, where he's just talking shit about Cody and about The Rock's legacy. He's all about it. And they cut back to Cody, and oh my God, they let Cody blade. He's bladed. He's bleeding in the rain. The blood is pouring off of him into the water. The camera work is just impeccable. Rock is just laying into him. Then he brings out the weight belt he promised to his mother. Rubs Cody's blood all over it. Oh my fucking God. And then he grabs Cody's face, pulls it towards him, and says, "This is what happens when you fuck with the final boss." And I am like, oh my God. I thought that it was bad when CM Punk was saying dipshit 2 hours ago. And The Rock is just full on saying fuck on live television. And the crowd is here for it. Just an absolute masterpiece ending. I cannot believe that this is not the go-home episode of SmackDown, because this is unbelievable levels of hype.
Yeah, like I don't know how they're gonna follow this up. Either this week or with the last 2 episodes. Monday night and Friday night next week. You're right. This should have been the final. This should have been the conclusion before the big WrestleMania weekend.
I mean, honestly, it makes me think, like, what are they gonna do next SmackDown?
But yeah,
because this is just like unreal.
Yeah, the notes that I'd made about the 8-minute ending, like, yeah. Look at you now. Does The Rock know any other more quotes? Like it was getting a bit excessive towards the end. But I laughed that despite all the current roster of SmackDown and Raw that they have, the major in the rain outside fight, the trailer that you see in the background is a trailer that has Stone Cold Steve Austin and John Cena on it. Now, I don't know if that was just because all three, like the 2 of them and Rock have all gone Hollywood at some point, or if that was shade at current roster. I don't know. But
well, some people theorize that is a subtle nod to how this is going to end at Mania.
Okay.
That those 2 are going to come out and help when all hope is lost, because Cena already has some history with Solo, from Solo beating the shit out of him in, I think, Survivor Series. And The Rock and Austin obviously have a connection. And they put that trailer there, and they light that trailer up too. Like, it is specifically lit to be visible. It is not just in the background in natural lighting. Like, they have spotlights on it. They are definitely calling attention to it, and a lot of people think that that's what we're going to get at Mania.
So you think one, if not both of them, potentially are there as guest appearances in some capacity?
That's what the internet wrestling community is talking about right now.
And then the other notes, like the Mama Rhodes threats at this point in time. If Mama Rhodes is not at WrestleMania herself body slamming The Rock, I'm going to be fucking disappointed. Like,
I'm quite sure that she's going to make an appearance of some sort at Mania.
Like, she is as involved with the storyline now as any of the mainline characters. Like, it's madness. And then at the end when he's on the ground all bloody, I don't know if it was a raindrop, but I swear to God, it looked like The Rock spit on Cody, and I was like, this is now taking it to a whole different level.
They really leaned into it, very Attitude Era. The realism, the backstage, the extending everything out of the ring, the realism. Cody getting allowed to blade.
Mm-hmm.
We had like what, 2 shits, a fuck, blading, and a Canadian destroyer on this match. Like, things that are just not allowed to happen on WWE. I am so hyped for where we are right now in wrestling. You just absolutely and because they've been so protective of these things, it hits so much harder. Like, people are bleeding on AEW every goddamn week. People are hitting Canadian destroyers in AEW every second week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great, and it's fun to watch, and it's entertaining, and it's the next level, but it loses that impact. When you leave it for the big moments, it just hits so much harder.
Mm-hmm. But it was the lead up to WrestleMania that was needed.
It was absolutely incredible. One of the best Raws I've seen in a long time. Certainly the best Raw I've seen since I started watching full time again. And I cannot point to another Raw in my memory that was as good, top to bottom, as this. Mm-hmm. I guess like probably the low point was like the Candice LeRae match.
Yeah.
And even that wasn't terrible. It was short, but it wasn't terrible. But you had like the initial promo, the swerve of The Rock being silent, then the 3-man weave with Drew and Seth and Punk in Chicago. All the matches were solid. Like, it just top to bottom, just an incredible episode of television. I had a horrible day yesterday.
Oh no!
And I came home and I watched this, and I was taken to another world and put back into a better mood just by watching this.
Well, that's good to hear.
It was incredible. All right, that's it. That's it for Raw. Now, Kies, you get your special dessert at the end. You get to play Will.
Okay.
In the game segment. It's time to play the game. The game where Will always loses, except this time because he's not here. This time Kies gets to lose. So let me just...
Which I will.
Which you will. Let's just prop this up. Okay, get some volume on here. I just want to preface this by saying the song I'm parodying this week is one of my favorite songs. I'm not sure you'll have ever heard it, or most of our listeners ever have, but this is like probably top 10 songs in my life. I'm
gonna be disappointed if it's not OK Blue Jays.
It is not OK Blue Jays, despite how close we are to the start of the season. All right, here we go. Promotion fan, tell me if you can, if you are the man that will understand. Promotion man, the ugly truth is that some of these might be real fake. Promotion man, the brain of a smart mark confused by this man, guessing if it's real or a sham. Promotion man. Do you have any idea what that song is?
No, but I do want to give you a round of applause.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That's very good. All right, so promotion fan Kies, I am going to give you a series of 5 different wrestling promotions, and I want you to tell me if they are real or if they are fake.
Okay, 50-50 coin flip, I got this.
50-50 coin flip. So we're going to start off with question number 1. The promotion is named Urban Wrestling Federation. Bringing a hip-hop element to a traditionally rock and metal sport like wrestling isn't a bad idea, but limiting yourself to a bevy of thug characters across the roster is. Urban Wrestling Federation promises to bring the hood to the ring, which likely only sounds appealing to a scarce few.
So UWF, it sounds like it would actually be halfway decent. I just don't know if anyone would have the set to actually pull the trigger on it. So I'm going to say it is fake.
Incorrect. The Urban Wrestling Federation is a real promotion. The end result is a lackluster product. Most fans don't want wrestling to devolve into an imitation of gang warfare. I just want to cite that Bleacher Report gave me some of these.
Amazing.
Some of the real ones on this one. So props to Bleacher Report for their article for I believe it was the top 25 worst promotions ever of wrestling. All right, question number 2.
I'll have to see if it has any coverage on our streaming service and start watching it.
I do actually think it's on Apple TV. I think I looked it up, and it's on Apple TV of some sort, so there's probably something you could watch.
Brilliant.
Okay, we got New Wrestling Evolution, and don't get it mistaken, new is spelled like new metal, N-U, New Wrestling Evolution.
Just based on that alone, I'm going to say fake, but continue on.
Okay, an Italian promotion, New Wrestling, shifted into New Wrestling Evolution, which focused on showcasing former American wrestlers. Is New Wrestling Evolution, the Italian promotion, real or fake?
I'm going to change my answer, and it's real.
That is correct.
Nice.
When your best wrestlers include Heidenreich, Mr. Anderson, and Scott Steiner, you know you're in trouble. NWE toured Europe and was seen on TV in Britain, France, and Italy. Drew viewers primarily because it was one of the only games in town and focused on wrestlers that people knew from the past. Ultimate Warrior once had a match when he was 10 years out of the game at the age of 49.
Oh my God.
It was a main event in 2008 against Orlando Jordan. All right, question number 3. We have
so I'm 1 for
women.
1.
You're 1 for 2.
One right, 1 wrong. Sorry, 1. Yeah,
1 and 1.
Yes, 1 and 1. Sorry.
Cool. So number 3, Women's Extreme Wrestling, WEW. Fans have to be 21 years or older to attend Women's Extreme Wrestling, aka Women's Erotic Wrestling. An all-female promotion has some intriguing elements. Wrestlers perform in many different matches that are not usually seen performed by women, but there's an extreme bend with some sexually explicit material. Real or not real?
See, based on the current world we live in, I can 100% see some second tier strip club in Florida putting this on. So I'm gonna say real.
That is correct. It is real. Past events for WEW include names like the Nude Booty Kick, Locker Room Lust, and Battle of the Hose.
Oh my God. Or at least it's original.
All right, question number 4. We have Incredibly Strange Wrestling, ISW. Based out of the West Coast, a poor man's imitation of Lucha Libre, put on wrestling shows that have also featured live music with punk bands such as NoFX and Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. Characters such as Harley Racist, Cletus the Fetus, and the Abortionist are some of the characters that have wrestled for ISW. Real or fake?
See, okay, as you started the pitch, my mind was instantly like, this is fake. But once you started giving some of the wrestler names, I'm going to have to say real, because there was some barn boxing event I watched on, again, our streaming service a couple months ago, where some of the boxes, the one dude's name was Starving Steven and Glock Glenn. So just based on the name examples you gave, I'm going to say this is real.
That is correct.
Yes.
ISW is real, based out of San Francisco, California. Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys once apparently played a heel manager from time to time. It's more performance theater than wrestling. ISW was an attraction at music festivals primarily and then quietly faded away.
Amazing.
All right, you're already one. You're 3 for 4. But number 5, we have Combat Zone Wrestling.
Drum roll.
Technically CZW. Imagine ECW with less talent and more violence. More than lacerating people, there's also fire involved and tables, and usually they are wrestling in front of an audience of maybe 50 people. This is Combat Zone Wrestling. CZW, CZW, is that real or fake?
Well, the fact that the previous 4 have been real, I'm going to stick with the trend and say this exists.
That's right. I was hoping for the exact opposite thing to happen, that you would keep hammering fake on all of these. But yes, all 5 of these promotions are indeed real.
Nice.
You know, Will never wins the game, but Kies does, and that's what we do for our friends here who have to fill in that.
And I'm the least. I'm the least.
1, 2, 3.
I'm the least informed wrestling fan of the friend group.
That's true. That's true. I just hit a symbol. I'm gonna have to cut that out. That's it for this week. You know, it was great. Thank you so much for coming and filling in for Will. Kies. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll hear from you in the near future.
Of course.
I have exciting news. On the weekend of WrestleMania, we have decided that we are going to do a podcast on Sunday before night 2. So you're going to get 2 podcasts that week. You're going to get a Smackdown night 1 of Mania recorded on Sunday, hopefully released before night 2. It probably is going to be right around when it begins night 2. So you can listen to that after night 2's over. And then later on the week at our normal time slot, we're going to have night 2 and Raw on the normal Wednesday, Thursday, Friday release. So look forward to that. We're going to have a double dip, and we're going to have some fun stuff coming as well around April 1st. No spoilers. If you made it this far, then you're a little spoiled, but you're going to appreciate what we have coming up for you that weekend as well. Kies, do you have any plugs for us? I don't think you do. You don't really.
No, but
you're not as active as Will.
No, but if I'm filling in for Will, I will act as Will. Download, listen, stream, buy the Galacticas on any streaming service that exists. What's the name of his Dune podcast?
That is Chapter by Chapter.
Listen to Chapter by Chapter. Friend of the pod, Steve Haynes is his co-host. That's all I'm gonna plug.
And I got a little secret for you. Co-host of Chapter by Chapter, Steve Haynes, is 1 floor above me in my living room, waiting for me to come help him with his job. That's it for this week. Please email 14123%@gmail.com. Guys, the numbers don't lie. They spell disaster for you at Sacrifice. We'll see you next week, and hopefully we'll be back.
Go Jays, go.